Ahead on Q2, calendar controversy.
It was pretty roundly supported, something like 81% of 654 teachers.
Billings Public Schools will soon have shorter years, but longer days, and not everyone is happy with it. We'll dive into the debate.
Historically, for the time I've been on the school board, this has never been a decision that's made this lightly.
Plus, a scary situation erupts in Livingston as the town's Albertsons is evacuated after a standoff breaks out at a nearby Starbucks. We'll let you know how it ended, and a story of survival.
The doctors gave me, they came to my wife and said there's about 50% chance, you might want to say goodbye.
One father's life changes in an instant after a mysterious infection nearly took his life Christmas Day. The MTN 4:30 news starts right now. A good afternoon, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday. I'm Russ Riesinger. For a second year in a row, School District 2 is changing its school calendar. The good news, starting next school year, Billings students will start summer vacation 2 weeks early, but there is a catch, and that catch has some frustrated. Tonight, our Casey Conlon dives deeper into the calendar and the debate behind it.
6 yeses, 3 nos.
The motion does pass.
And with that, the 2025-26 School District 2 calendar was approved, and it'll look very different. The school day will start 10 minutes earlier and end 10 minutes later. Elementary Education Director and Principal Kira Gaskill says it'll make a world of difference for the youngest set.
That means we can intervene more with math, we can accelerate, we can do remediation. So 20 minutes a day in elementary every day is very powerful.
Specifically for 4th and 5th graders, the district recently realized that those grades weren't meeting accreditation standards with instruction times. That's why the district went to reduced recess this year.
It's a very tight schedule. So that's why we would like to have more minutes during the day.
Longer days also means fewer days. It will still start after Labor Day, but end again on Memorial Day weekend instead of this year's mid-June end date. The 2025 calendar only has a 3-day spring break, but the committee said that's only because of a quirk where Good Friday falls in 2026. Subsequent years go back to a full week off. Teachers Union President Lance Edwards says his group is overwhelmingly in favor.
It was pretty roundly supported, something like 81% of 654 teachers.
But ratification didn't come easily.
Most of the public saw this on Friday, and the board's voting on it on Monday. And frankly, I don't think that's fair.
Historically, for the time I've been on the school board, this has never been a decision that's made this lightly.
Trustees Zach Tarakitis, John Von Langen, and Teresa Larson voted against adoption, mainly because they believe the public wasn't given enough time to weigh in. Transportation Director Lindsey Gran, who made the calendar proposal, listed one more benefit. The calendar will save the district $200,000 in transportation costs. In Billings, Casey Conlon, MTN News.
Meanwhile, school board trustees have also decided not to ask voters for any bonds or levies this spring. That vote not even close, with 7 trustees opposed to pursuing any bonds or levies and just 2 trustees in favor. Several recent bonds and levies in the district have failed. The trustees did not oppose presenting one in the future, but say the district must come up with a better strategy for how to approach them. Some tense moments at a busy Livingston shopping center today after a man with a gun barricaded himself inside a Starbucks right next to a busy grocery store. It all began just before noon in the 2000 block of West Park Street, right next door to the town's Albertsons. According to the Park County Sheriff's Office, the suspect was getting coffee at Starbucks when he was identified by law enforcement as having several outstanding warrants from Yellowstone County. All customers and employees were safely removed before the suspect barricaded himself in the store. The Starbucks and adjacent Albertsons were closed during the standoff, and guests at several nearby hotels were told to shelter in place. All business has now returned to normal. The suspect is yet to be identified.
It's going to be a busy period for the weather. It's mild today, and it's going to stay that way for a while until we get spoiled heading in towards Saturday. But suddenly we'll start to see a shift, a lot more wind into the mix, especially Friday and Saturday from areas from Billings towards the west. They usually wind-prone areas, no big surprise there. But as everything starts to break down, we definitely have some colder weather in store. That could even lead to some flash freezing and some snow. We'll talk about all the forecast details coming up.
A new directive from the Trump administration is causing some big concerns for thousands of nonprofits that offer essential public programs. The White House Budget Office has ordered a pause on all federal grants, loans, and other financial assistance. A sweeping move, it says, is necessary to bring a vast number of programs in line with President Trump's priorities. Erica Brown has the latest from the White House.
A federal district judge has temporarily blocked President Trump's federal funding freeze pending a hearing for further arguments set for February 3rd. The development comes after White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt held her first briefing Tuesday, tackling a barrage of questions about the plan.
This is not a blanket pause on federal assistance and grant programs from the Trump administration. If you are receiving individual assistance from the federal government, you will still continue to receive that.
In a memo sent last night, the Office of Management and Budget ordered all federal agencies to assess their programs and activities to ensure they comply with President Trump's recent executive orders directing assistance be temporarily frozen.
Every one of our offices has been deluged with calls from people who are in panic. What is this going to mean?
The freeze memo specifically mentions financial assistance for foreign aid, quote, woke gender ideology, and the Green New Deal. Democrats say Trump does not have the authority to freeze funds Congress approved.
This illegal move is a massive overreach by the Trump administration.
Many Republican lawmakers are defending the president's move.
A lot of these grants were predicated on divisive, discriminatory, and illegal DEI. So we'll find out more, but I think it's appropriate to take a look at it.
The Trump administration stressed that the freeze will not impact assistance provided directly to individuals, including Social Security, Medicare, food stamps, and welfare benefits. Meanwhile, President Trump's immigration crackdown has hit cities across the country. Newly confirmed Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem is overseeing ICE raids in New York. She posted video on X of an arrest. The agency says it made more than 1,000 arrests Monday. Erica Brown, CBS News, Washington.
U.S. Federal Reserve policymakers are meeting today and tomorrow to discuss interest rates. This is the Fed's first such meeting under President Trump's second term after he came out last week demanding it cut rates. Dan Grossman has more on what we can expect from this meeting and others throughout the year.
With immigration raids happening in major cities across the country and President Trump threatening an immediate 25% tariff on Colombian goods, the Fed is expected to wait and see how the president's new policies affect the U.S. economy before it decides on any interest rate measures.
If, for example, tariffs are imposed, if there's a big crackdown on people in the country, deported, reducing the labor force, both of those most people think would be tend to be a little inflationary. So that, in fact, would probably trigger the opposite response. The Fed might be a little bit tighter.
It's a lot to take in, but such is the economy. Deportations could weaken the labor force, causing businesses to raise wages to attract workers, which could cause prices to rise for consumers. It's conjecture, according to economist Bill Emmons, but that's why he expects the Fed to take things slow until Trump's policies paint a clearer picture on the economy.
The Fed is, I think, at this meeting is going to signal that they are pretty happy with the way the economy is right now, but likely to say, but there's no need for the Fed to do anything.
The Fed consistently eased interest rates throughout 2024, lowering it 3 times from a target range of 5.25% to 5.5% in January last year to a target range of 4.25% to 4.5% in December, where it currently is.
It affects things like savings accounts. It affects things like mortgage rates.
Aaron Cirksena is the CEO of Modern Capital and says he expects a more tempered approach throughout the rest of 2025. Even though the Fed and executive branch are separate, he says it'll be interesting to see if the president's demands to immediately lower rates affect how Fed Chair Jerome Powell leads his group.
Do Trump's words sort of carry any weight with the Fed as we sort of go throughout the year? Is him continuing to sort of hammer them, wanting to see lower interest rates, going to cause them to move the needle?
Dan Grossman, Scripps News, Denver.
Montana will be receiving $16 million as part of a settlement with opioid manufacturer Purdue Pharma and the Sackler family. Montana Attorney General Austin Knudsen announced the deal yesterday, with the money being part of a larger nationwide settlement totaling nearly $7.5 billion. According to the AG's office, the settlement resolves allegations that Purdue, under the leadership of the Sackler family, fueled opioid addiction and overdose deaths in Montana and across the country through its manufacture and aggressive marketing of opioid painkillers. In addition to the monetary payments, the settlement ends the Sacklers' control of Purdue and their ability to sell opioids in the United States. Well, imagine this. You go to bed on Christmas Eve with some minor swelling in your leg and end up in the hospital on Christmas Day on life support with a 50% chance of survival. That is exactly what happened to a 35-year-old Billings man. An infection quickly spread up Andrew Walker's leg and led to organ failure. As our Charlie Kleps reports, Walker, who has 3 boys under the age of 8, found himself in a fight for his life.
Andrew Walker has spent the last 2 weeks here at the Rehabilitation Hospital of Montana working to return to his family. And after hours of work and strengthening exercises, that moment is finally here.
I actually don't remember much.
For 15 days, Andrew Walker's mind was essentially blank.
On Christmas Eve, my legs started to swell a little bit.
Minor leg swelling suddenly morphed into extreme illness. Walker was rushed to the hospital on Christmas Day, the last thing he remembers.
I think within, 24 hours, I was in total organ failure.
Walker was put in an induced coma, placed on life support, and given a 50% chance of surviving.
I've got 3 boys and a wife, and I'm just really glad I'm still here to see them.
Hours turned into days, days became weeks, but somehow Walker did wake back up, although his world had completely changed.
I woke up January 9th, no idea where I was, no memory of what had happened in the past 3 weeks.
Due to a serious infection, doctors had no choice but to amputate his right leg. The shock was surreal. Only 2 days before, Walker had been aggressively lifting weights.
When I woke up, my wife comes and sees me and she hands me my 8-month-old, I can't hold him, she's like, what?
But those emotions are what drove Walker, determined to return to his family and back to his outdoorsy lifestyle.
So our early days with him, it's a lot of kind of figuring how to do life again.
Josh Cedarberg with the Rehab Hospital of Montana has been with him every step of the way.
We're figuring out kind of how to build him back up from square one and get him stronger and figure out how to move through life with this new perspective.
While there were ups and downs, Cedarberg says Walker's determination never wavered. On Wednesday, he'll be released to return to his family.
There's so much joy and there's so much pride that happens. We're so happy for him to get home.
My goal here was to get strong enough to go home where I could help my wife. I feel like I'm there.
One of many goals down in what will be a long road, Walker remains determined to accomplish them all.
I'm still here. I'm going to get a prosthetic, and I'll be doing the same stuff I was doing before. In 4 months, you wouldn't even know.
In Billings, Charlie Kleps, MTN.